And today I have with me Laban Ditchburn. Hello, Laban.
Emily Penton, so blessed to be with you. Buenos dias, and big shout out to everyone tuning in.
Yes. And Laban and I crossed paths. Oh gosh, I think it feels like it's been like a year ago.
Might have been
And
18 months ago.
it's been a while. And long story short, he was going to interview me and I canceled or rescheduled I and then he had to reschedule because he was moving and we finally just crossed paths again. And I would like to welcome to everyone the world's best courage coach. And how did you get that title? How did you get the title of the world's best courage coach? And let me just confirm real quick, it's true. It's absolutely true. It's not an overstatement. Go ahead.
Well, I got to say, thank you, Emily, and bravo for the work you're doing. And if
Thanks.
you haven't subscribed and left a beautiful, powerful rating, do it now. Pause this, do it now, because it's the work that Emily's doing, which is incredibly important and allowing people like you to hear about this stuff because it's not promoted in the mainstream, as you know, and we need people to bongo drum that stuff out. Okay, so that's the first thing I'd say. Um, since we first connected, I've lived in 3 countries, and so we've had a bit going on. But the world's best courage coach, and might trigger you when you listen to this, and I kind of grateful that it does because at least it sparked something within you, and you haven't just glossed over it like you're numbed out on complex carbohydrates. But it's a declaration that I make and nothing at all to do with ego. And I wake up every morning and I ask myself, how would the world's best courage coach conduct himself? And it was off the back of an interaction I had with an extraordinary gentleman by the name of Steve Hardison, who, Emily, maybe if you'd be so kind to put the link to his book, The Ultimate Coach, and maybe the
Yes.
Boost the Tui video as well. Because I'm trying to articulate and explain this man who is an enigma is very challenging in the time we've got available. Needless to say, this man had a profound, profound effect on my life just in September last year. Ever since I've made the declaration, world's best courage coach, it has completely transformed the way that people interact with me, particularly people that I look up to and at times idolize and have now become friends with. And I think that's a really important distinction. Like, have you ever had an experience in your own life where you've done really well at something, but the people around you keep you down and they prevent you from celebrating and leaning into that greatness? And this is really a kick in the face of cowards and tall poppy syndrome people that want to drag the crab back into the bucket. Because where I grew up in New Zealand, and certainly where I lived in Australia and in England and other parts of Canada and some parts of the US a little bit, have this issue with wanting to cut people down at the knees so that they don't ascend too high. And I call bullshit on that. I think that's a really destructive behavior. And so I'm part of a movement really that I'm creating to change the intention, to change the design, to change the feeling around not leaning into our greatness, because I believe that all of us are Michael Jordan level genius at something, and that's an Evan Carmichael quote. And when you find what that is, Emily, my goodness, your life will completely transform for the better, as I know you've found out. So thank you for asking the question.
Yeah, and you really are the best courage coach because just the interactions that I've had with you ever since the very beginning, whenever we first had that first phone call to schedule this recording and to schedule for me to be on your YouTube channel, it was like wildfire. Like we literally were going to have like a 5 minute conversation about scheduling. And it just all of a sudden I believed in myself on like a level like 10 times higher. And I'm like, what is this magic? Like, what is this mystery? And it was nothing that you said specifically it was all of these beautiful stories. And as you were telling the stories, it's like you were giving me permission to be in your stories. And I've literally never experienced another human being like you in my life. Like
Well,
it was next level. And it wasn't even coaching. It wasn't even, you know what I mean? Like we weren't even like officially like, hello, I'm Emily, I'm your client. Hello, I'm Laban, I'm your coach. Um, it was just this organic, beautiful exchange. And I saw immediately how powerful it was, the courage that you um it was almost like it was contagious. Like I caught it. I caught your courage.
it is contagious. It really is. And I love you for saying that about that, Emily, because it really touches my heart, because this is what my reason for being on the planet is. Like, it took me until I was 40 years of age to figure that out. And I finally figured out I'm well on my way to being known as the world's most positively influential speaker by being the world's best courage coach. Now, isn't that a cool thing to say, rather than I'm a lawyer or an accountant? And no offense to any lawyers, because there's some great lawyers and great accountants out there, but you see the context. All right. And it's given me such a clarity and such a purpose. And when you have that purpose and the clarity, you can focus all your efforts on the things that are so deeply rewarding. And it's, a question for everyone out there: have you ever had a moment in your life where you thought that you were destined for much greater things than what you're achieving? I'll give you the tip. You are. You are. And until you figure that out, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer immeasurably, because it sucks doing what doesn't fulfill you. And for me, it
Yeah.
was recruitment for 16, 15 years.
It's that mismatch, where that your potential is here, but you're living here. And so it's just that mismatch of that energy. And it's just like that nails on the chalkboard kind of an experience every time you wake up. And now you're like bumping fists with yourself and you're nailing it. Um, and I mean, it's evident. Like I'm not joking, and I'm not being dramatic. My life has changed since I met you.
That's so great. I'm starting to get a little bit emotional. I like, isn't that such a wonderful thing that people can have impacts on people's lives like that? And you know what, Emily? Again, I'll say I love you for sharing that, because people have done that to me, and
Mm.
all I'm doing is paying it forward. And for you, if you're listening out there now and you're maybe not having the impact on people's lives that you wish you could, I'm telling you right now, it's a learned skill. It's a learned behavior, and you can do it too. And imagine hearing that from people. And this happens to me a lot, by the way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what I think also is that like it all translates to whatever level you're at. I think so many times people think, oh, well, I need to hire a coach to be like this, or I need to hire a coach to be that. You just need to hire a coach to be you. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, what I love more than anything about like your book and your podcast, in which I would love to have you talk a little bit about your book, is it's so relatable. It's not like you're this like bigger than life, amazing thing. Like you're this like everyday superhero in your environment where you're at. And I think that we all are called to be superheroes right where we're at, in our homes, in our communities, at our jobs. So, you want to tell people a little bit about your book?
Well, the book is called Bet on You. And Bet on You relates to the horrendous gambling addiction that I used to deal with. And I was also an alcoholic and battled with a recreational drug use, philandering. I had limiting belief issues. I had an autoimmune disease that was incurable, and I fixed it. And and I'm very proud. This is being recorded in October 2022, and I just celebrated 6 years of sobriety, longer
Way
for
to
the
go.
right, and without any 12 step, or I understand these are important parts, but I didn't have to do the extra effort with that stuff. I was able to reverse engineer and figure all that out. And I'll ask the question again, like, if you are out there right now and you are in a place in your life where you're like, oh, I don't like the direction that this is heading, this will be a book for you, because I wrote it for me for 5 years before I hit rock bottom, right? But on the surface of it, Emily, I looked like I had it all together. I had a good job. I had, turned up to work on time. I would post happy birthday on people's Facebook pages, and I paid taxes, and I did all these things. And deep inside, I was a deeply wounded child, which for me was nothing more innocuous than being a child of divorce and growing up with parents who were ill-equipped to esteem themselves properly, let alone their own kids, because they grew up in really shitty environments. And so the book is a really fun journey through some of my experiences in life, with a powerful Laban's random lesson at the end. So it's not a finger waggle book at all. It's all stuff that I've done, and I'm still a work in progress. I still make mistakes. I still have lots of work to do, but I'm doing damn good, and I'm happy, and I met the woman of my dreams. I healed the incurable autoimmune disease using carnivore diet, by the way. And people are like, oh yeah, finally he's talking about something that relates to me, right? But here's the beautiful thing: the diet was the catalyst for the healing. Let me repeat that: the diet was the catalyst for the healing. Now you can tell me whatever you want, but for me, in my 3 years on almost strict carnivore, I was still eating ice cream and having black coffee at the time, but I cut out all grains and carbs, apart from a few plants here and there. That was the catalyst for my healing. And I've freed myself of the tether of emotional tyranny. And that is miraculous. And that's why I wrote the book, Bet on You.
Mm. And I say this all the time. I feel like carnivore is the gateway drug. I feel like carnivore is what gets us in the door to remove the inflammation and clear the chaos out of our heads and our bodies, so that we can think, and so that we can hear our bodies, and so we can navigate this when we're so like just chocked full of sugar and processed foods and drugs and alcohol and sleepless nights and everything. It's just like we can't. It's like we're literally walking in a fog. We're walking in a cloud. But whenever you use that tool of carnivore, then it's just like, oh, I can see. I know what to do. I know the best choices for me. And then that's whenever it goes to the next level. And so after carnivore, what was the next level for you in your healing?
Well, if you'd allow me to Skype for a little bit, because I think this is an
To
important
Skype?
part. To Skype, to gloat.
Oh, that's a new word.
You never heard of Skype before?
No, I love it. I'll look it up afterwards.
I think it might be Skite, maybe. Don't quote me on that.
I will definitely look that up.
I want to share this part of it. It's in the book, but I want to share this part because I think it's an important, it's a powerful validator. Because at the age of 38, Emily, I had never been a distance runner. And as of May 2018, I had run 3 miles, was my longest ever distance. And after a huge emotional breakthrough that I had, some forgiveness that I made and gave to my mother, I went for a run on a Sunday morning, and I did 26 kilometers, which I think is about 18 miles.
Wow.
And then I was like, I came home and I was like, what happened? And then I went, I'm going to run a marathon. And 2 weeks later, I ran my first marathon in 3 hours, 56 and 47 seconds. And then I was like, what else can I do? And then I signed up and I ran my first 100 kilometer, which is a 60-mile ultra, 16 weeks after I first ran more than 3 miles. And I've completed 3 of them and been medically withdrawn from one and completed a number of other shorter ones. And I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of digging, and I can't find any other examples of anyone with that kind of progression. And I find it so interesting because it ties in beautifully with the diet. I was healing. I was able to sleep. I got powerful amounts of REM sleep every night. My body was recovering. And so my workload was able to remain high. And that's how I believe I was able to pull this off. And so I just wanted to share that because it's really something I'm super proud of. And like, who would have thought, right?
Forgiving.
Like, just ridiculous.
Forgiving,
right? Maybe forgive people. Because it's like holding a burning ember, trying to burn the other person, right?
yeah.
So there's a
I'm
lesson
gonna
there.
burn you, and you're got like 3rd-degree blisters on your hands,
right? So
And
therein lies a powerful suggestion for people to consider.
yeah, and I've experienced that. And I had the common, misconception that I'm not going to forgive them because they don't deserve it and because I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect myself from those evil people by not forgiving them. Now that I see that's completely illogical, like completely illogical. As I forgave, and I had a list and I went through and I was like, okay, you're next. I'm going to forgive you. And I started loving them. I started thinking, okay, what can I love about this person? And some people, it was hard. Like I had to go down to the bottom of the list to find all I kept hearing was all of the horrible things they did to me over the years. And when I really got into it, and some people I had to picture them as a child and go, okay, what happened to you as a child to make you this screwed up adult that you're just so toxic and so mean? And I love children. And so when I go and I picture them as a 5-year-old, I'm like, oh, okay, so this happened to you and that caused this. And that's why you're now basically mentally ill. That helps too, to just imagine them as mentally ill people. Um,
I've never heard of it in that way, framed in that way. I mean, I think that's a really, really helpful tool that people can look at and implement. Man, it's just, and if I could share something personal with the
yeah.
audience, like my wife Anna, she's been very public about her experience, and you and I have spoken about this. We've collectively had 16 consecutive miscarriages, right? 2 ectopics, one of which nearly killed her in 2019. And a year after we got together, we've been together just over 4 years now. She revealed to me that from 15 until she was 21, she'd been sexually abused by a stepfather growing up in Russia. Now, you talk about forgiveness. Now she's healing, and I would almost say healed from this, by the way, like psychologically and all the other stuff. Now she's got a podcast called the World's Best Trauma Recovery Podcast, which you should check out for anyone that's been on the receiving end of any of that real heavy stuff, right? But she's forgiven her stepfather. She's forgiven her biological father for abandoning her and forgiven her mother for not being there to protect her. And has this wonderful relationship with her mum. Now, I'm not saying absolve the person of the responsibility. Don't get me wrong. She's not
Big
kicking
difference.
around. Big difference. She's not kicking around with stepdad, right? And if I got in a room with him and there was no one else around, I can't guarantee what would happen. But I don't think about it. I don't have any evil thoughts towards him. I kind of say that for there's always truth in comedy, but like, how do you do that? So if she can forgive him, I can forgive my mother for like wronging me, for keeping me at home when I wanted to go out with my friends or whatever ridiculous thing was. So I wanted to share that, and Anna gives me full permission. She talks about this openly, and she's just the most, I'm the world's best courage coach, Emily, but she's the most courageous person I know.
Ah, That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Yes. When you shared that story with me, it made me think about how we turn so much to the medical model. And we would go to like a fertility specialist and say, okay, she's broken. Something's wrong with her. She's broken. And it's actually something spiritual that needed to be released, and emotional that needed to be released. Um, and I think we're really missing the boat on a lot of autoimmune disease, on a lot of things that surface in the physical. And so it looks physical. So we're like, oh, well, we need to solve it in a physical way, when actually there's so much power, exponential power, whenever we address it emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah, I mean, I think a really important point to highlight as well is that my health journey, I lost 60 pounds of body fat, right, and replaced 30 pounds of it with muscle. And I also put on a pound, half a pound, sorry, of skeletal bone density.
Wow.
And which for those in the know, understand that that's a pretty remarkable feat at that age. And it was, I believe, my body was healing, and as I was physically healing, I was emotionally and spiritually healing. And when I was running, Emily, I would get to about 8 or 10 miles and I would start weeping, like tears of joy, for about 2 years. And I can only hypothesize that it was my body chelating or detoxifying the stored trauma in my system. And that might sound a bit woo-woo for people, but I promise you there was a direct link between my healing and my levels of spirituality and intuition. Now, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm very spiritual, very spiritual. And I'm not arrogant enough to know that there's just dead space out there. There's something bigger than me out there. And it allowed me to step into my greatness, and allowed me to achieve and overcome major adversity. That's just scratching the surface of the stuff that we've had to go through. And if you're finding yourself with immeasurable trauma or turmoil going on in your life, like, the best advice that I could give anyone would be, sort your diet out first. Give yourself a fighting chance to be able to overcome this all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it speaks so much to, like, whenever you and I met, it was just like this instant, like, spark. And it was just like, whoa, like, there's something here. And so for us to not recognize that there's something happening in the spiritual realm, this isn't just and this was literally a phone call. Like, we're in different states. This wasn't us physically meeting in the same room. This was a phone call and then a Zoom meeting. And there's no other way to explain that connection and that flow of communication, except for to say there's something else. There's another level of everything. And I think that it's so beautiful that that has manifested itself in the healing in not only your body, but also your wife's body. And we're definitely going to put her YouTube, her podcast in the show notes as well. And as you have navigated this, what has been your experience? I recognize that this is her body, but what has been your experience with her healing?
It's purely inspiring, and it's humbling. That's what it is. I I'm the one that's written the book. I'm further along in my journey, and I'm the one that's done all the other stuff. And Anna's sort of starting her journey. And what I'm noticing and recognizing is that people respond. There's a light that protrudes out of Anna that is spiritual. Like,
And she's
she
so beautiful. Oh my
right,
goodness.
and she's
Oh my
smoking hot as
goodness.
well.
So
And
beautiful.
she's a great advertisement for carnivore, because Anna was largely carnivore as well. She was metabolically, she's got a visible six-pack. Like, she's 35. She looks great. So she could get away with eating more fruit, right? So um, but just seeing her lean into her healing, because a quick side note,
Yeah.
the reason that Anna felt comfortable sharing that story, because I was only the second person in 20 years that she'd told. When it first happened, she told her 15-year-old friend at school when she was the same age, and her friend was mortified, right? What does a 15-year-old girl know about how to handle this stuff? When we first got together, I've lived a life, Emily. I've been a debaucherous degenerate at times, and it's all in the book, most of it at least, maybe some for the rest. And I've done all kinds of crazy things, and I was so fearful of having these conversations with ex partners that I would sort of deliberately leave things out, and I was lying by omission. And I read a book by Mark Manson called Models, and it's like attracting women through honesty. And this is in 2017. I read this book and I was like, huh. And so I started doing it with some other girls that I'd been dating, and they received really well what I'd done, and they accepted me for who I was. I was like, there's something in this. So when Anna and I got together, I said to her, Anna, I've lived a life. You can ask me anything you want as long as you're happy to hear the answer. Now, men, before you offer that, make sure you've dealt with your own stuff, which I had, thankfully, because it came up and there were some things about my past that I was ashamed of at the time, which are just now insignificant, right? That really knocked our relationship around for a day or so when it happened, like 6 months in. But what it did, it created a bond of trust, a bond of trust that Anna then felt comfortable sharing with me, all right, a year later, what had happened to her. And in doing so, allowed her to start her healing journey. So there's a powerful lesson there about operating with an integrity, because if the person that you're with is going to break up with you because of something you've done, they're not your person. Okay. They're not your person. If you are in a relationship and you've been in it for a few years and you've got a big doozy, like you've got another family and you've got other kids or something, like how much stress are you putting on your own life? How negatively is that affecting your health? Can you imagine? And because I'm able to be so honest with Anna, I don't have to worry about remembering any lies. All right. And that takes so much energy from you when you oh man, I got to watch what I say here. And so, because what people think of us is none of our business, right?
Yeah.
It's a Les Brown quote. I'm pretty sure it's Les. Apologies if it's not, but I'm pretty sure it is. And that's just the philosophy that I take into life. And throughout my healing journey, Emily, 99% of my former circle of friends kind of just sort of drifted off. And it's not because they're bad people. It's just because I've got nothing in common anymore. Some people attacked me for my healing journey. Not many. Most people were supportive. But what's happened now, because Anna and I are able to really step into our genius, our sweet spot, is that we're attracting other people that are energetically aligned, like and so blessed to have you in my life, right, and have you in our lives, and because you are super inspiring, you are just so magnanimous and magnetic, and it empowers me with the encouragement to keep going on. And so that's my encouragement to other people out there. You have this amazing ability to reclaim whatever ridiculous trauma or abuse that you've gone through, whatever horrible autoimmune health issue that you've gone through and are recovering from, and to share that with people that are further behind than when you were. All right. And it's like that great movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Catch Me If You Can, with based on a real life character, Frank Abagnale, who used to fly for free on Pan Am by impersonating a pilot. But he also taught a whole semester of school. And they said to him years later when they're interviewing this guy, Frank, they said, how did you do that? He said, I just had the lesson book and I was one lesson ahead. How simple is that? You do not need to be whole, and I'm doing air quotes, or healed to be able to inspire and motivate others to step into their greatness.
Yes. And what I love about the healing that has transpired is that you gave Anna permission by modeling that yourself. And so, because you created this vulnerable space, and I'm sure that was uncomfortable,
Oh, yeah.
that you were like, here's my good, my bad, and my ugly. It opened something up in her that she was just like, okay, I can do this. Talk about the best courage coach in the world. Like, like you really had to have courage to do that. And then you spurred that and inspired that out of her to have that courage to lay vulnerable before your partner, to go, here's the most ugly, disgusting thing I have. And then what I would say for the next level is to experience love after that disclosure. For her to be able to have that opportunity to love you unconditionally, to love you despite the ugliness, and for you to love her despite what she feels is ugly. Um, and then that's where the healing really takes place. So amazing. So the behind you, it says become your own superhero. And I know that is your you call it podcast, YouTube
Yeah,
channel?
it's a podcast. It's a YouTube channel and a podcast. It's a Ucast. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for me because whenever people say podcast and then sometimes there's no video. And so I'm like, is it a podcast if it's just audio? And is it, or can it can be a podcast and video?
That's a great question. I don't know. You remember that word vlog, like
Yeah.
video log? Maybe it's replicated across all the podcast platforms on video, on YouTube, and yeah, I think it's the main place. So let's call it. It is a podcast because it's called "Become Your Own Superhero" podcast.
There you go. So what do you cover? What do you talk about on there?
So do you remember like growing up watching like Marvel and all these superhero franchises, idolizing, looking up, going, man, I wish I could wish I could fly like Superman. Well, I was like, fuck that. What about becoming your own superhero? And what about being someone that people look up to and are inspired by and go, man, I wish I could be brave like Laban or be courageous like Emily and heal from incurable diseases like these two guys. And so I it was born out of the lockdown in 2020, and I just wanted to bring on amazing people that had a story that would inspire and empower and motivate people to take action for themselves.
Mm.
And so it's a very diverse, lots of motivational speakers, lots of brilliant health experts, some of whom have been on your show already, and some world-class Olympic athletes, and there's a few famous people here and there. But they're really just people that I want to learn from. And we talk about forgiveness. One of the episodes, I had a guy, Dr. Fred Luskin, who founded the Stanford Forgiveness Project. And his book, Forgive for Good, and was a book that I read after having a huge fight with my father about a year and a half ago. And then I brought him onto the show to help me with my forgiveness. And this guy was responsible for reconnecting like an Auschwitz camp survivor with the camp commander, and people that had their children killed by bombs from the IRA, and people are reconnecting and hugging, and forgiveness and love is being brought forth into the world. So these are the kind of people that I love to bring on, and I'm super excited to bring you on to share your story. And yeah, that's a passion of mine. I love doing it. I love allowing people the space to speak and be vulnerable if they want to, and most people do, I think. So yeah, I love it. So check it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. And I feel like I won the freaking lottery to just be your friend, and to just like, for you, the fact that you even know my name, like, I feel so honored and so blessed. And I remember when you first reached out to me like 18 months ago, I was just like, I even like went to your channel then, and I was like, wow, like I can't believe he even knows who I am. Like I felt so honored. And then when we reconnected and we talked on the phone for the first time, um, it was just like, it was so cool because it was just like, not only was I in awe of you, I felt like I had found my peer. Like I had found someone who was on the same level as me in loving people, like deeply, deeply loving people and wanting what is best for all of us, like, that quote, as the tide rises, all the boats, come up, and you really get that. Um, and so I just want to say thank you personally, but I think it's more than that. Like, I'm just one person. And what I love about your book and what I love about your podcast is that it's accessible to everyone. It's not just accessible to lucky me, it's accessible to literally everyone to just go to your podcast, go to buy your book, and become your own superhero. It's literally that easy.
Well, I don't want to make this a smoke blowing exercise because it's not. But you talk about you being honored to know me, and I find that so remarkable to hear. And I love and receive and accept that. But I feel exactly the same about you. I don't know anyone who's overcome what you've overcome with such just poise and
Mm.
just graciousness and knowing more about you, which will be revealed to the world as time goes by, is just, it's humbling. And I'm the lucky one, and the audience are the lucky ones to be able to receive the downloads, the divine downloads that are being passed forth to you. And I just love you for it, Emily. So thank you very much.
No problem. And we have so much more work to do. I mean, so much more. We're going to have so many more conversations. And there's so many people who don't get it. They don't realize their center of brilliance. They think that they're this like screwed up, messed up person, and that's like game over. And we're like, no, like, keep going, keep going. There's so much more. So I'm excited to be on this journey with you, and just so grateful to have crossed paths with you. And I literally cannot wait to see what unfolds next for both of us.
Amen, sister. And again, rate, subscribe, like, share this with people you care about. And if you're looking at both of us thinking, oh man, I wish I could do that, you can. All right. So you got to surround yourself with people that are doing it. All right. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time around, as Jim Rohn quote. And you become like the books that you read and the people that you associate with. So heed that warning.
So true. Bet on You is your book. Laban Ditchburn is your name. And then Become Your Own Superhero is your podcast. All right. Thanks, Laban. Talk to you later.